Hi, I'm Lonnie. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be painting Jordan Hall at the New England Conservatory. Please feel free to give this video a like and subscribe. Let's get started. Mixing French ultramarine with a little permanent alizarin crimson. The mixture at this point is pretty watery as I'm getting ready to put the first wash in the sky. Add in a little bit more water and a little bit more French ultramarine. Also added a little bit of cerulean blue to lighten it up a little bit. And yep, there's my cell phone. The video on the left is a cell phone, the video on the right is from my camera. I was testing it out to see if I could film the palette at the same time as the painting itself, and wasn't really paying attention to how much phone would end up in the shot, but oh well. So now you get a double video. Working the sky down on the right side of the building. As I get closer to the horizon, I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, so I've added a little bit more water. And not being too careful around the buildings because I do want to bleed a little bit into the edge. So once I do add color to the building, it will create a little bit of a soft edge. Especially if the sky is still wet when I add that color. So you can see here I'm actually going all the way into the right side of the Jordan Hall with the sky color. And as I get into the buildings here, I mix in a warmer color, Pyrrole red with a little bit of Hansa yellow medium. And cell phone, blocking the shot. Those are all brick buildings in the background. And this yellow is going to serve as kind of the highlight color. I'll come back later and add in shadow, but was trying to get a sense of light in that back corner. With the buildings beyond. And on the palette, wanted a less saturated version, so I'm bringing a little bit of yellow in with a little bit of blue. As I get closer into the street, I'm using a less saturated version of that yellow. And it was too saturated, so a little bit more Hansa yellow, brighten it up. And it appears pretty bright now, but you can see how much water I'm using. It'll dry a lot lighter than it looks. And a little bit of cell phone, just to add excitement to the video. And lightly bringing the yellow down to the bottom of the page with water, and just decided to cover that whole all the buildings on the right hand side with the yellow, knowing that I'll end up covering it later and it'll dry it will dry lighter. And cell phone, got rid of the cell phone because I figured that was just gonna slow me down. So speeding the video up on the building, it is a mixture of a color which I don't know because it was from one of those trays where the colors aren't labeled, but it's kind of a salmon color. Quickly blocking in the base color for Jordan Hall. And you can see I'm leaving bits of the paper still white. Those are going to be future highlights, and I probably should have left a little bit more of those, but was quickly trying to lay this in before it dried. permanent alizarin crimson with a little bit of French ultramarine at the lower part of the image, and hinting at some shadows with the grayish mixture of the French ultramarine with alizarin. And I probably could have gone darker at this first dark wash, but at the time it was hard to really gauge the values with everything being as bright as they are or as light as they are. But I started blocking in some shadows at the lower part of the image just to give myself a sense of where the image is going to go. Trying not to get too caught up in the details, but adding a little bit of detail at the base of the building. Not too concerned with the color, other than the fact that it's a cool color acting as a shadow. And as I get into the buildings here, I mix in a warmer color, Pyrrole red with a little bit of Hansa yellow medium. And there's my head coming into the image, connecting the shadows of the background to the shadows of the foreground. At this point, they're roughly the same value. I realized that that's a church in the background, the bright red streak. I'll come back later and make it less bright red. And blocking in a van here on the sidewalk. And darkening the foreground again. I'll probably darken the foreground 3 or 4 more times. Added a little bit of shadow into the street, left the highlight at the crossroads in the distance, and then moved on to adding details to the building. And you can see pretty far jump ahead. I had to cut a lot of the footage out because my head blocked most of it. Most of that as I was filming. Adding a little bit of detail to the cornice. And to the right side of the building. You can see I'm getting pretty detailed in the shadow side of the building. Most of this will get covered up later. I think I was caught up in adding details, but the important part of that side of the building was just to get the value right and have a solid tone there. Darkening the shadow at the top, moving down to the bottom, darkening the shadow, darkening the in-between spaces of the brick and stone. Trying to keep the strokes random to give a little bit of texture to the base of the building. And then as I move up the right side of the building against the coins, try not to add the full definition of them, but just give a sense of it, just so you know what you're looking at, but it's not too obvious that those are joints of the brick. And darkening the shadow on the left hand side of the building. In this case, I wanted to compress the focal point of the image more to the center and right hand side of Jordan Hall, so I started to darken the shadow a little bit on the left hand side of the building here, still preserving the highlights around these center windows. Carefully darkening the shadows. Try not to go over the highlighted areas, the white of the paper, which I've left since the beginning. In some areas I've accidentally covered it up, but that's okay because you still get a sense of the light shining against the protruding parts of the stone. Fast forwarding, you can see many of the shadows I've darkened in order to give it a little bit more contrast between the highlighted areas of the building and the shadow side of the building. And here also I decided to darken the top part of the sky. The paper was completely dry, so it was okay to go over with a whole new wash there. And in this fast forwarded part of the video, that's dried a little bit darker, probably not as dark as I wanted, but dark enough. And there's my head in the video. The reason why I've cut a lot of the video out, but you can see here I am adding a little bit of detail, or at least hinting at detail, in the street and in the background, which aren't the focal point of the image, so I'm trying not to go too in depth with the detail, but I am trying to hint at just the scene so you get a little bit of context. That includes adding the van in the lower hand right side of the image with the ladder on top of it, next to some lights, darkening the shadows. And as we near the end of the video, thank you for watching. And as I mentioned before, feel free to give this video a like and subscribe. Until next time.